Hello everyone. So today we are going to discuss about a very important topic of the first professional MBBS, which is brachial plexus. We'll be dealing this under a few subtopics. First we'll discuss what is brachial plexus, and then we will be talking about the components of brachial plexus, then the branches that arise from the brachial plexus, and finally the clinical correlation associated with brachial plexus. So what is brachial plexus? Brachial plexus is defined as a plexus of nerves, which means it's a network of nerves which is formed by the anterior or the ventral rami of the lower four cervical and the first thoracic spinal nerve. So which are the lower four cervical nerves? It is C5, C6, C7 and C8, and the first thoracic spinal nerve would be T1. So brachial plexus is composed of the anterior rami of C5, C6, C7, C8 and T1. However, it also receives contribution from both C4 and T2. And depending upon which has a larger contribution, we have prefixed and postfixed brachial plexus. So in the prefixed brachial plexus, the contribution of C4 is larger and T2 is absent. While in the postfixed brachial plexus, the contribution of T2 would be larger and C4 contribution is absent. So this is the introduction of brachial plexus. Now let's talk about the components of brachial plexus. The brachial plexus basically consists of four components, which is the root, the trunk, the divisions and the cords. So talking about each one in detail, the root comprises of the anterior primary rami of C5 to T1 spinal nerves. So which are those? The C5 to T1 spinal nerves. The anterior primary rami constitutes the root, and the root is located in the neck deep to the scalenus anterior muscle. And this consists of C5 to T1. Now these roots, they join and they form the trunk. So we have three trunks. So first we have the roots, and then we have the trunk. So how is the trunk formed? The roots of C5 and C6, they join to form the upper trunk, whereas C7 alone forms the middle trunk, and the roots of C8 and T1 join to form the lower trunk. So we have the three trunks. Which are the three trunks? We have the upper, middle, lower trunk. The upper is formed by the roots of C5 and C6. Middle is formed by the root of C7, and lower is formed by C8 and T1. Now the trunk also lies in the neck, but it lies between the scalenus medius and the scalenus anterior. So it is occupying the cleft between medius and the scalenus anterior. The scalenus anterior is located in front of the trunks, whereas scalenus medius is located behind the trunk. So this is about the trunk. Now as you can see in the diagram here, each trunk, it divides into two and we have divisions. Each trunk, it divides into two. So here we have the anterior division of the upper trunk and the posterior division of the upper trunk. Similarly, we have the anterior division of the middle trunk and the posterior division of the middle trunk. And then we have the anterior division of the lower trunk and the posterior division of the lower trunk. So each trunk divides into one anterior and posterior divisions. And all the divisions, it lies behind the clavicle. And it lies behind the clavicle. Next, these divisions, it joins to form the chords of the brachial plexus. So let's see how the chords are formed. So as you can see here, we have three chords: the lateral chord, the medial chord, and then the posterior chord. The lateral chord, the first one, is formed by the joining of the anterior divisions of the upper and the middle trunk. Whereas the medial chord is formed by the anterior division of the lower trunk alone. While the posterior chord is formed by the joining of all the three posterior divisions, that is the posterior division of the upper, middle and the lower trunks. So we have the chords. So we have three chords: the lateral, then we have the medial, then we have the posterior chord. So how is the lateral chord formed? The lateral chord is formed by the anterior division of the upper and the middle trunk. How is the medial chord formed? The medial chord is formed by the anterior division of the lower trunk. The posterior chord is formed by the posterior division of all the three trunks. So these are the components of the brachial plexus. Next, let's talk about the branches of the brachial plexus. Now, let's talk about the branches of the brachial plexus. So along with the branches, this is how the brachial plexus looks like. So first, let's talk about the branches that arise from the root of the brachial plexus. So as you can see, we have two nerves, that is the long thoracic nerve and the dorsal scapular nerve. So the long thoracic nerve arises from the root of C5, C6 and C7. So the root value will be C5, C6, C7 for long thoracic nerve, and this nerve supplies the serratus anterior muscle. The next nerve that arises from the root of C5 is the dorsal scapular nerve, which supplies the rhomboids. Next, let's talk about the nerves that arise from the trunk of the brachial plexus. So we only have to discuss about the nerves that arise from the upper trunk, which is, we have two nerves. One is the nerve to subclavius, which supplies the subclavian muscle, and the next one is the suprascapular nerve. The suprascapular nerve supplies the supraspinatus and the infraspinatus muscles. Next, let's talk about the branches that arise from the codes of the brachial plexus. So, talking about the branches that arise from the codes of the brachial plexus, we have a small mnemonic that we can follow. For the lateral code, 3 nerves arise, which can be memorized as LLM. So, we have 3 nerves, the lateral pectoral nerve and the lateral root of the median nerve, and then we have the musculocutaneous nerve, which are the 3 nerves that arise from the lateral code of brachial plexus. We have 3 nerves, LLM, that is the lateral pectoral nerve, the lateral root of the median nerve, and the musculocutaneous nerve. The lateral pectoral nerve supplies the pectoralis major muscle, and the lateral root of the median nerve joins the medial root of the median nerve and forms the median nerve. Then the musculocutaneous nerve, it supplies all the muscles in the anterior compartment of the arm. Next, let's talk about the medial cord. So, from the medial cord, we have 5 nerves. The 5 nerves can be memorized as M4U, that is 4M and 1U. So, we have, for the U, we have the ulnar nerve, then the 4M would be, so we already talked about the lateral pectoral nerve, so we also need a medial pectoral nerve. So, the first M is a medial pectoral nerve. Then we talked about the lateral root of the median nerve. Similarly, we also need a medial root of the median nerve. So, from the medial cord arises the medial root of the median nerve. So, 2 M's are over, we need 2 more M's. The other 2 M's are the medial cutaneous nerve of the arm and the medial cutaneous nerve of the forearm. The medial pectoral nerve, like the lateral pectoral nerve, supplies the pectoral muscle, that is the pectoralis major and minor. And then the medial cutaneous nerve of the arm and the medial cutaneous nerve of the forearm are both sensory nerves that supplies the medial side of the arm and forearm respectively. Then, talking about the ulnar nerve, which arises from the medial cord, supplies all the intrinsic muscles of the hand except the 3 thenar muscles and the 2 lateral lumbrical muscles, and also supplies the flexor carpi ulnaris and the medial half of the flexor digitorum profundus in the forearm. It also has sensory function and motor function. And then the median nerve, which is formed by the union of the lateral root of median nerve and the medial root of median nerve, it has both motor and sensory function. It supplies all the muscles in the anterior compartment of the forearm except the flexor carpi ulnaris and the medial half the flexor digitorum profundus. So, which is a nerve that supplies flexor carpi ulnaris and medial half of the flexor digitorum profundus? It's the ulnar nerve, which we already discussed now. Then apart from that, it also has supply to the 3 thenar muscles of the thumb and the 2 lateral lumbrical muscles. So, we talked about the nerves that arise from the medial cord. Finally, we have the posterior cord, and again 5 nerves come from that. These 5 nerves can be memorized as ultra. So, which are the 5 nerves? We have the upper subscapular nerve, the lower subscapular nerve, the thoracodorsal nerve. Then for RNA, we have the radial nerve and the axillary nerve. So, the upper subscapular nerve supplies the subscapularis muscle, this one, and then the lower subscapular nerve supplies us the subscapularis and the teres major muscle. Then the thoracodorsal nerve, also known as the nerve to latissimus dorsi, supplies the latissimus dorsi muscle, and the radial nerve and the axillary nerve are the 2 important nerves. The axillary nerve, it supplies the deltoid and the teres minor muscle, whereas the radial nerve supplies all the muscles in the posterior compartment of the arm and the forearm. It also has sensory function. So these are the branches of the brachial plexus. So which are the branches? From the root we have two branches, the dorsal scapular nerve and the long thoracic nerve. From the trunk we have the suprascapular nerve and the nerve to subclavius. Then from the codes we have the from the first code, that is the lateral code, we have three nerves: the lateral pectoral nerve, the lateral root of the median nerve and the musculocutaneous nerve. From the medial code we have five nerves: the medial pectoral nerve, the medial root of the median nerve, then the medial cutaneous nerve of the arm and the medial cutaneous nerve of the forearm, and then finally we have the ulnar nerve. Then from the posterior code we have five nerves again: the upper subscapular nerve, the lower subscapular nerve, thoracodorsal nerve, then the radial nerve and the axillary nerve. Now, five of the most important nerves that we must remember while studying the upper limb are the musculocutaneous nerve, the median nerve, the radial nerve, the axillary nerve and the ulnar nerve. All the five are branches of the brachial plexus.